And thanks to the organizers and Susan Spinner who helped the lottery and the people who make these events happen. We all want to gather gratitude.
Thanks, Bruce. Thank you. Bruce Brockman, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next, I want to bring up a young woman who's actually in a similar situation to Josh. Her name is Sarah Olson, and she's a writer for Truth Out, and she's been an independent journalist and radio producer for some time. She interviewed Army Lieutenant Wakada, who was the first to refuse to go to serve in Iraq recently, and she can very well be served with an Army subpoena next month because they're calling her to come be a witness against him. So, Sarah, if you could come on up and tell us a little bit more about your case and what's going on in the country right now.
Hi, thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, Josh, for having me. I appreciate being here and this company with everyone who cares about independent media, who cares about freedom of the press, and who cares about the ability to accurately and effectively portray the individual, the personal, and the social struggles of people in San Francisco at T8 protests, at anti-globalization protests, people in San Francisco at anti-war protests, who are struggling to envision society in a different way, who are struggling to see things in a little bit of a different way, to envision the kind of world that they want to live in and the kind of world that they want to see, and have people that are having the courage to stand up for that vision of that world. And the reason I want to talk about that a little bit is because I think it's very important. When we have a media that doesn't portray the people that are struggling to create change in this culture, we have a culture that can't change. And I think it's very important for people to recognize the power and the influence that media has. People like to talk about how media doesn't necessarily influence what you think, but it does influence what you think about. And I think as we see the media becoming more and more controlled, and as we see the media in the hands of fewer and fewer people, the lockdown, the kind of control over what people know and what people think is very much a real thing. So I want to say just a few words about my own case, and then I will hand it over to other speakers. I know there are a lot of people here to support Josh tonight. I did do an interview with First Lieutenant Aaron Wakada. For those of you who don't know, he is the first he's the first officer to publicly refuse to fight in the Iraq War. He did this in June. He's been charged. He's been charged with not going to Iraq, which is a fairly obvious charge. He's also facing, if he's convicted on all of the counts that he's been charged with, he's facing up to 8.5 years in prison. 5 of those years, 5.5 of those years, are for things he's said to the press. 5.5 years in prison for things that he said to the press. So I think that it's important to think about, because obviously the Army is recognizing the power that his statements make. And I want to also say what Lieutenant Wakada was doing was sincerely and honestly, earnestly even, questioning the nature of the war, questioning the validity of the actions of this country. It's an act that someone in almost any other realm in this society would be applauded for doing, for fully participating in the civic functioning of this culture. In Lieutenant Wakada's case, he's facing 5.5 years in prison. So the Army has asked me to testify against the lieutenant. I've declined, and I will be resisting, the request to have me testify in whatever ways possible.
Yeah.
I haven't, just to make it clear, I haven't been subpoenaed yet. It's possible that I will be next month, and so hopefully I can come to you all and ask for your support as well.
Oh yeah!
Alright, so thank you all very much for coming, and again I wanted to thank Josh for the bravery and the courage and the integrity that he's shown, for the work that he's doing, for the position that he's taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Next speaker I want to bring up is a local San Francisco filmmaker. He works out in Bayview Hunters Point with youth out there, trying to give them access to radio, film, and other forms of media to get them involved in really putting their own voice out there. He's directed and produced straight out of Hunters Point. Kevin F. was also subpoenaed by a federal grand jury recently, and he can let you know a little bit more about that. But there was a federal investigation into gang violence. He also refused to give up his tape, so he's another local hero. Kevin F. from Kentucky.
Thanks, everybody. This is like a night. Yeah, I met Josh, man. I forgot how we met. I think I got a current TV launch party, and we just kind of had chatted about what was going on with the indie media and that kind of stuff. And I think a few months later, somewhere on the line, we talked about this situation that we were dealing with, because we sort of read about that situation that I had. It was kind of under the radar in a sense with the press, but like the community kind of knew about it, where the feds like served me a subpoena, sort of like this, about like unedited versions of my film and any notes, anything that was related to it. And this was George Bevan.